Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Class E Podcast. I'm your host, Mary Sturgill. Remember, this podcast is brought to you through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. We're so excited about this particular episode because we taped it in front of a live studio audience here on campus. Students were able to ask questions to our guest, Doug Lineberry. Here is that episode. Doug, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mary. Glad to be here.
Let's start and talk about your career path.
Sure.
Because you got out of college, you're an attorney, right? How did you end up in intellectual property?
You know, that's a great question. Actually, I was a farm boy growing up, and I knew I wanted to be an attorney since I was tiny. Hated poli-sci, hated it. I went to Emory and Henry College, again, about the size, a little smaller than Furman, about 1,000 people at it, and loathed poli-sci, but loved bio and chemistry, and took a double major in each. Got out of college, and I knew I was going to go to law school. I mean, it's just my plan. The way I became an IP attorney is kind of weird, though. I went to law school at Mercer. My first job was at Nelson Mullins here in town. Used to be the Landmark building. Now it's the Windstream building downtown. Mm-hmm. And so I started out as a labor and employment attorney. I didn't touch patent. I didn't touch trademarks. I literally handled labor and employment disputes for big companies. And so I had actually snuck, and I'm one of these weird personas. You guys will catch on this fast. My boss upset me one night. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take the patent bar. And so I did it on the sly, didn't tell anybody, studied at night. Still had to take it in person, so you had to drive to Atlanta to actually take the bar back in the old days when dinosaurs roamed the earth. And so I went down there for 2 days, took it, passed it, and then promptly put it back on a shelf. And so for about another 3 years, I did trial work, labor and employment, depositions, all that, and finally decided, hey, you know, I've got this degree. Part of the reason I went to law school was to be able to use that degree for biology and chemistry. And there's not many of us in the legal world who do that. You know, a lot of engineers become patent attorneys, but most folks who go to law school either have like a history, sociology, or an English degree. You know, still a majority of them. And so for me, I'm like, hey, I really wanted to get into this. I really wanted to start doing it. And so I quit. You know, I was at my firm, and I went and joined an IP firm here in Greenville and became one of their attorneys and sort of started over. You know, I was a partner at Nelson Mullins on the labor and employment team, and like, hey, you know, you've kind of grown up as an attorney doing one thing. Yeah. And so I switched. I went 180, stepped back, and I was basically a Padawan to a Jedi Master. I didn't know what a patent was. I didn't know what to do. And so you had to restart. And so I encourage everybody here, y'all, you might think you're going down one path in life. Don't ever be overly devoted to it. Anytime you want to change. But again, that was kind of how I got my feet wet in it. I went from being one type of attorney to being a patent attorney. Found out I'm pretty good at it, and as y'all can tell, I'm really shy and I don't talk much. That's kind of rare for patent attorneys, and it makes it very easy to deal with clients and also the Patent and Trademark Office.
Right. So let's talk about intellectual property. What all does that cover? Because, I mean, now with the digital age, I mean, probably anything you could think of.
Honestly, right? I mean, Mary, that's a great way to describe it. You know, we're looking at patents. You know, how do we protect an innovation? How do we protect an invention? How do we protect how it looks? It could be a design patent. Copyrights. You know, that's something Mary does all the time. Like, literally, guys, we're generating a copyright right now. Okay. If y'all want to play a fun game, everybody pull out your phone. Come on. I know it's a Wednesday afternoon, but humor the old man. Pull out your phone. Aim at Dr. King. Pull up your camera app.
Dr. King's like,
I know. She's like, I did not know this was coming. And everybody just hit the photo button. Click. We all created a copyright. Thank you, Dr. King, for being our willing participant, or at least surprised participant. But guys, that is how simple it is. We've created an artistic work based on Dr. King. Now, granted, we're ignoring that she's got rights of publicity and rights of identification that we don't want to trample on, but it can be that simple. And it's just like your podcast, Mary. We can create those copyrights that fast. Push of a button, typing on a keyboard. So another type are trademarks. You know, hey, the Furman logo right there on your hat. What's your name, by the way? Ross. Hey, Ross. Ross's hat, y'all, beautiful idea for a trademark. It is the Furman symbol. It's on several hats in here. It brands the school. It's why you came here, because you liked the school's brand. Same concept in business. You have a trademark like McDonald's or Pizza Hut or whatever it may be, and they identify a particular good and a particular way it's provided, just like the education you get here at Furman. Our last one are kind of the esoteric ones, trade secrets. And what a trade secret is some way that your company makes money that if your competitors knew about it, they'd be able to usurp it from you and cut you off, maybe have a better product, maybe beat you to a market. These are the things that we keep secret. Think the Coca-Cola recipe, our expansion plans, something I just found out about that are secrets. Anybody from the coast in here? Any coast? Awesome. Y'all have all seen the professional fishing boats. try to issue a FOIA request to ask where they go. They will never tell you that because it is a trade secret particular to that boat and its captain, because where they go to fish is their secret. They know the good holes, and the state will not tell you. Even though they track them religiously, they will not tell you where they go because it's their trade secret. Because if all of us know where the good fishing hole is, we go open up a fishing boat and fish their holes. So that is a trade secret the state actually helps people keep.
Yeah. By the way, FOIA is Freedom of Information Act,
acronym.
for those of you who don't know. So you could ask, but that you won't get. So let's talk about the difference between those. So let's start with copyright.
Sure.
And I mean, now we live in the digital age, everything is on the internet. Do we have to go to copyright.gov to copyright everything that we do?
Beautiful question. And remember, guys, we created a copyright by pushing a button. Copyright.gov is where we register it, and that does give some enhanced value to it. Your attorney's fees, triple damages. If somebody, Ross, if somebody copies your latest painting and they had exposure to it and you can show that, if you've registered that copyright with the Library of Congress, you can get triple damages and attorney's fees for that. If we don't, like our picture of Dr. King, and we just had it under common law, we don't get those enhanced damages. We can still protect it, but we don't get sort of the benefit of registering the mark with the feds.
So then let's talk about patent. So what's the difference between copyright and patent?
That's awesome. A copyright is kind of like we did with Dr. King. It was an artistic creation. We took a photo. It's also painting. It's also making a sculpture. It's also computer code. So don't always think of it as it has to be like a movie or a recording or something like that. Patent, meanwhile, protects an invention. How it's made, how it works, or how it looks. And the how it looks thing can sometimes lap over into copyright because it protects appearances, but patents are typically directed to this innovation, how we make it, and how we use it. And a patent has to explain to the audience how to use the device, how the device is made. It's part of the monopoly. You get a 20-year monopoly on that subject matter, but you have to explain to people of your level in the art how to make it, how to use it, what to do with it. Copyright, on the other hand, we are locking something in that is our original creation. We can't copy other people's stuff, and don't lift things from the internet. If we take anything out tonight, do not copy stuff from the internet. It's a bad plan. I've got clients hit with this all the time. They'll see something they like, they put it on their website, they get a C&D from somebody.
And a C&D is a cease and desist.
Yes, absolutely. You don't want a cease and desist letter.
Because what comes next is a lawsuit, right? If you don't take it down. And I tell my students this, but I teach digital storytelling, and I tell my students, if you did not create it, then don't put it in one of your projects, because your project is going to live on your e-portfolio, on your website, on your personal website, after you finish this class. Therefore, it's in the public domain, and somebody could find that you lost it. Or that you used it, I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And and a lot of companies now, the sophisticated ones, have electronic robots that will go prowling for their images or prowling for certain text that they think people will steal. And so anonymity is not even a protection. They will find it at some point if it's important to them.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about copyright, patent. What about trademark?
Sure. It's kind of like what we talked about the Furman symbol. You guys came to Furman because you liked its brand of education. You like the campus, you like the professors. It is their brand, and that's what trademarks are. They're a signifier to the consumers, in this case students, of the education you can expect from Furman. What's the campus like? What are the people like? Who are we playing this weekend? ETSU. That locks in the consumer loyalty, think of it that way. But trademarks are also to protect the consumer, because when you drink a can of Coke, you know what a Coke tastes like. But everybody's going to buy Lower Publix, and you've bought the sketchy one before. It's not lie. We have all bought one of those caramel-colored things in an off-brand bottle, and it's never Coke. It never tastes quite like it. Never tastes quite like Mountain Dew, and they're out there. But what that is that brand signifier is the guys with the other stuff can't put a Coke label on it. That's Coke's entirely. That trademark's over 100 years old now, probably will continue to age, but it is their brand. Nobody else can use it. Ross and I cannot set up a company and start making Coke and slapping that label on it. Simply can't do it. We're prevented from it. We can't set up another Furman University someplace either. So that brand is protected. That's what a trademark does.
Yeah. So you can trademark logos, you can trademark names. Can you trademark anything else, like phrases or taglines or anything like that?
It's a little crazy. True or false, we can trademark a smell. What you think, Ross? True. Name me a smell that's been trademarked, Ross.
No idea.
I got one for all y'all to try. Go to the Verizon store down here at Cherrydale, walk inside of it, sniff. They trademarked the smell of a Verizon store. And I know that sounds nuts. Also sounds. Ross, can we trademark sounds, true or false?
Go true.
Go true. Always go true, man. Always go. Just like pick and see. You've got this. Harley Davidson motorcycles. None of us can make a motorcycle that sounds like a Harley. That is a specific trademarked sound because their consumers identify that particular rumba, rumba, rumba with a Harley. And that smell of a Verizon store, guys, it seems a little nuts, but it is trademarked. None of us could set up like an electronics store and make it smell that way.
So my students deal a lot with what's in the public domain, like music, royalties, right? Explain public domain. Absolutely. And what people can and cannot use. It is a slippery slope. I can't
pronounce the word. It is a slippery slope. Be very careful with it. A lot of people will assume because old, it's free. Copyrights, guys, last the life, and this is a short sequence. Like Ross, and again, you're going to be my foil buddy. I learned your name. I'm sorry. I'll learn another name eventually. But if Ross creates something, it lasts his lifetime plus another 70 years. So don't think, hey, something's old, I can lift it. You know, just like Mary said, that's a bad plan to begin with. But what we don't want to do is to underestimate it. Public domain means you can use it. It's free. It's out there. But guys, unless it's around, like I think the cutoff point is 1913, you need to be very, very careful on lifting anything because something from the 20s may still have an extant copyright on it. And if it's registered, then their attorney's fees and triple damages may come into play. So do not think old means free. Public domain means you can use it to whatever way you want to. Have a good time with it. But that typically is not for anything that's recent. And again, 1913, guys, that's over 100 years ago. To be able to go back to have that sort of, whew, it's public domain and we're okay.
Right. So let's talk about the process. If someone were, okay, say Cam here, he has a company, he has a logo. Somebody tries to lift his logo. What would be his process of getting that taken care of so that those people cannot use his work?
Sure. Cam, did we register the trademark? No. Okay, that's okay. We can still have common law rights in it. But if you guys open up a business and you see somebody using it, the first thing you want to do is assure, hey, have I taken those necessary steps to protect? And so Cam's going to run around for a little bit and think, crap, what have I got to do? Call an attorney, guys. Two things that you don't do yourself, trademarks and patents. Copyrights, we can teach you how to do. Trade secrets, you have to do yourself. You know, an attorney can't protect those for you because it's a secret and you're not supposed to tell everybody about it. But in this case, let's say Cam's got an invention. There's also a trademark with it. What he wants to do is if he sees it out there, it's kind of a bad thing because all IP is based on one fundamental concept. Shh. Until you're ready to talk about it, until you're ready to put it out there, shh. Because if you don't, Cam could be in the situation of, let's say that he had a competitor. Somebody came in, dark of night, went into Cam's lab, stole whatever the idea was. There are things we can do about that, but if they put it out into the market and it goes for a year and Cam doesn't protect it, we can't protect it. We're now statutorily barred. Right. And so for the trademark, you can come back and get those. That's fine. Like Cam, what's the name of your company? Triple Threat what? Fitness. I love it. Triple Threat Fitness. Cam can use that for 50 years and then come back and get a trademark on it as long as there's not a confusingly similar one, blah, 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 already registered at the Trademark Office. So Cam can use Triple Threat Fitness for 60 years, 70 years. As long as nobody files a similar trademark, he can step back in time and protect that mark. Now, granted, you don't want to do that. Right. You want to file federally quickly because you get enhanced damages. Cam has the ability to expand, and he also has the Trademark Office preventing, quintuple threat, triple threat gem, things that might be too similar to his mark can't register because Cam did register. So
that's pretty interesting because even if it's similar, they might not, if Cam is registered, they might not be able to use even a name that's similar.
Absolutely.
Can you give us an example of that?
Sure. Again, Triple Threat Fitness. Cam registered that bad boy, when did we register that, Cam? January 1st, 2020? No, playing devil's advocate. We registered your trademark January 1st, 2020. Ross, sorry buddy, comes out with Triple Threat Gym or Triple Threat Pilates, whatever you're into, Ross. But when he tries to file that application, Cam's is already there. The Trademark Office and the Patent Office are first to file, meaning if your application's there first, anybody that comes after you is reviewed with that critical eye. So Ross filed February 1st, 2020. Cam's mark will beat him because those are too similar. They're going to be in the same general area, fitness, health, holistics, etc. But Ross will not be able to get a trademark on it. And y'all, that's one balloon I have to pop a lot, is I will have people come in. Like I had to pop one today for a mark that it was essentially a very typical spelling but used a K instead of a C. And I had to tell the clients, like, look, I found too many hits of the C version of it. You can't do this. And so in good conscience, I can't file a trademark for something that's going to get slaughtered, because that's going to come back and be bad. But that's the benefit of filing it, is because those others are out there, and even though you don't know it, they're fending off other trademarks for you hour by hour, day by day.
Yeah. The other thing that I tell my students is to buy your domain so that no one else can use your name, right? Specifically, your name. But anything else, like he should have Triple Threat Fitness, he should .com, .net, all of that stuff.
And track them out, and y'all don't search them. A little trick that you will find is if you go there and start searching these names, the price starts to ratchet up, because they pay attention to the fact that someone's looking at this. If you guys like the Triple Threat Fitness Cam, just go ahead and buy it. You know, don't start searching it to see if those domain names are available. Go to the purchasing unit and just find out what's there then, because as soon as you start doing Google or Bing searches for it, their robots are looking at it going, oh, somebody wants to buy this, let's ratchet the price up. So be very careful about that.
That's good advice, because that, I mean, who would know that, right?
You don't.
Who would know that? Nobody would know that. You find out the hard way, yeah. So let's talk about some scenarios. Give us some scenario, and obviously I know attorney-client privilege, right? But give us some scenarios that you have encountered that went to court.
Sure, I had a client sued, and this lawsuits are public domain, so yes, you can go read those all day long, so I'm not telling you any tales out of school. I had a client sued for a horse vitamin one time, and a horse vitamin. And there was a company that had a patent. I'll lovingly call them a troll. They had no intention of ever manufacturing this, ever making a commercial product. They just bought the patent. And then they went out and found all these various farms and veterinary services, et cetera, that were using that compound to treat equines, horses. And sure enough, they sued. Now, this one did go to court. There was a lawsuit filed, but we ended up settling with them, because to defend one of these guys is sort of the plus and minus of the system. It is expensive. If you're going to litigate a patent, you're looking at $1 million in fees. If you're going to litigate multiple patents, they just start inching up again. But you've got to be very careful with that. And that's one reason why, you know, if Cam has an invention, we don't want anybody knowing about it until we file or we're ready to get it out in the public. But then once we do, we have a heck of an arrow in our quiver. You know, we've got an issued patent, we've got good claims, we've got the ability to go after folks who may be using our stuff. Others that have gone there, you know, I've had oppositions filed before. Anderson University is a client of mine. Don't hold it against them, great school too. But they've got another school, and I'll remain nameless at this point, who will oppose their trademarks. Anytime we file one with AU in it, we almost invariably hear from these guys.
You can think of the number of schools.
They're a lot. They're a lot. And it's not the ones that you would add to it. It's actually a sort of a mid-sized school, but they literally are rabid about this. And so, and y'all are starting to learn me. I protect my clients, and I like to fight. I like to argue. You know, that's part of the reason I'm an attorney. And so you do have to do that. You know, you will have to defend this. And it's like, hey, we searched and we got our mark. It was through what was called the opposition period. We put it out there. They've got 30 days to oppose. They did. And we had to fight for like 1.5 years to get this mark. And we finally got everything we wanted, and basically said to the other side, come back anytime. We're going to be here. But that's one thing, too, with your IP guys. You have to protect it. Nobody's going to step in. I know the Trademark Office will fend off some applications, but nobody's going to sue on your patents. Nobody's going to send cease and desist letters on your copyrights. And Lord forbid, nobody is going to protect your trade secrets for you. A lot of that falls on the entrepreneur to handle that from day zero.
So you said something very interesting about patents, that you have a patent for a set number of years, and then anybody can purchase it after that. Do you have to purchase your own patent after that?
What do you mean by purchasing?
So say we have a patent on, you know, a special pie recipe, right? And how long does that patent last generally?
If it's a utility, 20 years from the date of issuance. So what we're doing, our data priority. And so what we're looking at is we see that 20 years lapse. Now, we don't have to buy our own stuff. We can make our own thing during that monopoly period.
Right.
But at the end of the monopoly, anybody can do it. Dr. King can do it. You know, I can do it, Ross can do it, Cam can do it. Anybody that wants to be able to practice what's in that patent, they can do it, and we don't have to have any royalties from them to us or anything like that. Completely an open game. But during the life of that patent, you have a monopoly. You're the only person who can do what's in the claims. And if y'all get really bored and need to sleep one night, go to Google Patents, check out a patent and look at the numbered sentences at the end of it. That really is the guts of it. Everything else is advertising. But it's those numbered sentences, the claims, that define what that patent protects.
Insulin is a great example of that. Insulin was created for $1, right? and if any of you are type 1 diabetics or know of one, you know it's astronomical, the cost of insulin. I've done numerous stories on this as a journalist. And the patent just recently died, or whatever the terminology is. Expired, thank you. So only recently could they have, and the CDC does not allow any competition once you file that patent. And so there's no competition for insulin. So insulin, and remember the EpiPen? That went up as well, right? And because there was no competition on the market at the time. And now there is. So it's allowed for some of that market competition, but still hasn't gone down very much.
And we will need competitors to step in, because that's the reason they get the monopoly, is they do get the benefit of it. Right. They went through, they figured it out, here it is. And unfortunately, it is something that is call it an ethical quandary, call it a life quandary that patent attorneys see a lot. It's like, there's sometimes very valuable, very life-saving techniques, and only a certain crew can make those or do that or perform it for that year, lifespan of the patent, for that 20-year term.
Yeah. What is some advice that you have for our students, or even not just our students, but some of our podcast listeners who are entrepreneurs? What are the mistakes that you see entrepreneurs making that they could save themselves a lot of headache if they didn't make?
First of all, they ignored shh. Everybody likes to talk. We're a communal predator species, guys. We all yabba, yabba, yabba. When it comes to your products, when it comes to your inventions, no yabba, yabba. I want you not to say a word. I want you to consider this sacrosanct information. It is, because you're going to try to make a business off of it. You're going to try to make a profit off of it, maybe build a company on it. Shh. Until we're ready, we file provisional patent applications. We keep things a trade secret. We file our trademarks. When we're ready for it to go public, we control that. That is a massive problem. Another one is people don't check very well. They will go out and they'll get a company and they'll set up a company name, and the next thing you know, they're buying a truck, they're getting signage, they've got brick and mortar, and lo and behold, that name is too similar to somebody else. And they will get a cease and desist letter, a C&D, from somebody saying, hey, stop, don't do this. But now they've invested all this money into it, and you have this third party coming saying, hey, you purchased a food truck, you set up a business, you opened a website, whatever it is you've done, you now have to stop. It could cripple a business.
Any other pieces of advice that you have for?
Sure. Always ask questions. None of you were born a patent attorney. I'm not born a patent attorney. I get dumber every hour. Ask questions. If you are curious about something, but also don't be afraid. I mean, entrepreneurs, man, y'all really are the lifeblood of the universe. Get out there and do it. Don't be afraid to take some scrapes, get a bloody nose, go out there and have to do some blood, sweat, and tears. That's going to make your business go. Nobody's an overnight success and, it was just so easy. Those aren't the stories we hear. We hear about failure, we hear about tribulations, we hear about near misses, but keep trying. That is one of the critical things, is don't feel like, hey, I've had a rough patch, I'm going to stop. Keep on it.
Most entrepreneurs are actually serial entrepreneurs in that they've started multiple times, right? And finally they hit one that just blows up, right? So don't give up. You mentioned provisional patents. Talk about what that is and how can anybody, talk about what it is, and then I'll ask the next question.
A provisional patent, think of it as a placeholder patent. It's never going to be reviewed by the patent office. It only lasts for a year, so it's got a limited time for it. But it is sort of your placeholder, your footnote. Like Cam, if you've got an invention and you want to go out and talk to somebody about it, a very safe way of protecting it is to file a provisional on it. I literally am working on one now for a sophomore at USC who is a fantastic invention. And she's a bang. She actually talked to Johnson & Johnson a couple weeks ago about this because it's a very cool concept, but she did not say a word about what the concept was, didn't even mention it in just like an overarching term. So we're going to get her patent application, the provisional, filed next week. Once that's filed, anything that's in that application is protected. She can go talk about it to people. The disclosure's already been made in the patent. Another, hearkening back to something people do a lot, is that they forget that, hey, if I get up and present at Furman or Clemson or USC about my invention, if there's not a patent application already on file, you can file up to 1 year later in the US, but you can't file in Canada. You can't file in Australia. You can't file in New Zealand. You can't file in China. You, by disclosing it to the public before you did it with the patent office, you've waived those rights. You've lost your international rights. You can still protect it in the US, but you may never, ever, ever try to protect it anywhere else. So, and file those provisionals. Use them. You know, if you need to talk to somebody about something like a VC, venture capitalist, and you're out there trying to figure out, hey, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? File that provisional application. Make it as detailed as you can. You know, you'll hear people talking about a cover sheet. That's kind of like a last-ditch emergency effort. File a good, fleshed-out provisional. You know, put as many details into it as you can about the invention and how it works. You've got a lot of protection from that point.
Are those public?
They do not. They do not publish. In that end of that year period, poof, gone. So they'll never know. They will if they become a utility that publishes. Then you can go back and get access to them. But if it doesn't publish, or if you don't proceed with the utility from it, nobody will ever know about it. You'll have companies file serial provisionals. If they're not quite ready with a concept, they can file like a second provisional application, let it go a year while they look at R&D, market penetration, or whatever it is that they're trying to figure out.
So if while you have this provisional patent for this year, until you get the full patent, if someone comes along and kind of copies you, right? Yep. What is the protection there? Is it like protection like the full patent, or how does that work?
That's a good question, Mary. And also another one of those onerous patent concepts is we don't have issued claims yet. You can only infringe claims. Patents themselves, like a piece of paper patent, they cannot infringe each other. But if somebody is making a product, this is the point where you need to become a hawkeye, an eagle eye. Start paying attention to them. And you may also think about, hey, you don't have to let that provisional go the full year. It may behoove you to go ahead and get the utility on file to get the process moving. There are certain ways you can expedite the time span as well. You know, if you're over 65, if there's like a government interest, certain technology groups. So there may be a way to make prosecution faster for that utility. But you don't have to wait that entire span. But if you see somebody making your product, you need to start taking good notes. You need to start copying their websites. You need to start understanding where they're at, because if you want to fight with them, you're going to want those damages. You're going to want the ability to say, hey, you've been making this product since X. Now, also a cool little cheat is, if their product is out there and you still have a living application, you can write claims that cover that specific iteration of it. So there's a lot of ways to finesse the system. But again, with that provisional on file, you're ahead of them in the game. Your patent is going to be there before whatever it was they did, even if they filed a second one. So you will fend it off in that sense if it becomes a utility. But you've got to take those steps. That provisional literally is just going to disappear in a year if you don't do anything with it. You know,
we live in this global communication age. Everything is digital. Everything's online. How has that changed how you operate?
Sure. A lot of cautionary tales. You know, you want to tell folks, hey, look, just because you can find it out there doesn't mean that it's yours. Just because you can put it out there doesn't mean you should. Remember, if we disclose an invention without having a patent on file, we lose our international rights. They're gone. This digital age makes that as simple as upload, you know, submit, you know, record, whatever you may be doing to trigger that bar. Be very careful with it. If you have inventions, you need to talk to somebody like Brian at the Invention Center. You know, go to Dr. King, go to Mary, somebody who's sort of played this game before, and ask these questions early on. Again, y'all, big proponent of asking questions. Do it. Find out, hey, what should I do? And I mean, there's some great organizations too. They're totally free, like the Small Business Development Centers. We have one here in Greenville. Earl Gregorich is the director of it. Fantastic group. The student I'm working with from USC, the first thing I did after meeting her was send her to the Small Business Development Center. They're state funded. They sign a non-disclosure agreement with you. So Ross, you're protected. Cam, you're protected. Mary, you would be Dr. King. Whatever you disclose to them will be protected, and they can help you walk through some of these steps. Like, hey, I don't know how to set up a business. What should I be looking at? What should I consider? I may have IP. What should I do with that? So there are definitely groups out there that are free that will help you, but don't guess, and remember, shh, until you're ready.
If you don't take anything else away from today, shh.
Absolutely.
Don't talk about your stuff.
Don't, please don't. And don't publish it, don't record it. I mean, guys, these publications, and that's what it's essentially called, it doesn't have to be in text. You know, it can be a video, it can be a podcast. You know, like right now, if Ross, if you got to explain an invention over this, that's public disclosure. You know, we can't file in New Zealand, we can't file in Australia, can't go to Europe, all done, and we have to file within a year of the disclosure in the U.S.
It really has blurred the waters a lot, this digital age we live in.
It does.
Yeah.
It's far too easy just to be able to blurt something out because you can't pull it back. You know, it's just like Mary said about, you know, having some sort of copyright protected materials there. It's there forever. You know, delete doesn't mean delete.
Right, right. You mentioned international patents. Should someone who has a patent go ahead and just get an international patent too?
Now, Mary, how much money do you have?
Yeah.
Because they are expensive.
Or how much money do you want?
No, or how much money do you want? Both ways to look at it. If you're thinking that you're going to go with an international patent, you can file them. I'm going to acronym you to death. A patent cooperation treaty application. You can file it, and there's ways that you can work that to where you don't have to come back into the U.S. for 30 months from its original filing date or go into these foreign countries. It is a good way to allow a small company to A, protect the concept, to see if they're going to get bites from capital. Are we getting market penetration? Are we making money to justify this? Because at the end of that 30-month period, you're Caesar. You know, do I go Europe? Do I go China? Do I go Australia? Or this boat don't float, I'm out. And you have to make that business decision at the end of that 30-month period. So, but you've got the option. And if you wanted to go into all the countries, have a lot of money because the filing fees are outlandish. I tell folks this, if you're thinking international, where your consumers at, where your competitors at. Use those as sort of a good baseline guide to think what countries should I go into, because just filing in countries to file in countries is wasteful, and as a small entrepreneur, the last thing we want to do is waste resources. We want to use them concertedly and in a focused manner that best protects the business.
That's good advice. So if you are working for a company, you're not working for yourself, and you create this concept of how this company should operate, can you patent that, or does it belong to the company?
Oh, that's a great question. Now, who owns the company, Mary? How many people are in it? And I know I'm going attorney on you and asking, read your contracts, guys, and I get it. Y'all are students, you read all the time. Trust me, it's never going away. Read it all. If you work for a company, and if it's within your job duties, essentially it's a work made for hire. Right. What you develop for them could become their work. But if you are an engineer and you come up with a trademark for them, it's probably outside of your scope. So we need to know, A, what were you doing? What were you supposed to be doing? How does that impact the ownership of it? Because if we can show that, hey, it doesn't necessarily flow to the company, then it stays your property. But a lot of people will find out, and especially in an employee handbook, it'll say, look, if we hire you to R&D, research and develop, if we hire you to innovate, it's going to the company. And so you need to be aware of that when you take that position of, if I come up with some great ideas, they may belong to the company. Some companies might just give you an atta-boy or an atta-girl pat on the back, and that's it.
Right. Here's an example, and this is why I asked that question. As a reporter, I worked for television stations. I worked for media companies, right? So, and I did, over the years, thousands of stories for them, right? But none of those stories do I own.
They do.
They do, right? Yet I have them on my YouTube channel, right? They don't come after me, so why aren't they coming after me? Speculation.
$1 million question. What's it worth to them? Exactly. You know, and again, think of it too. Maybe they get a tangential benefit out of this. I mean, Mary, you're out there. You probably are doing it with their logos and stuff on it. Maybe to them it's a forgivable sin. I don't encourage any of you to adopt this because your luck will be like mine. The thing that we take will be the thing somebody is really passionate about. And I mean, y'all, I've had clients literally get cease and desist letters for pictures of metal detectors. You can't tell where they're at. It was only like a series of metal detectors. Literally had to fight that one. And it was a picture lifted off the internet and used in like a publication. And we had to fight it because to this group who owned the copyright in that picture, it was worth sending a cease and desist letter.
Yeah, and I'll tell you how I'm getting away with it, because I took the tape directly from the show, so it's already branded for them, not for me, right? And so every time it gets a watch, then that means they get a watch.
That's right. Absolutely. They get a little more footprint too. You're kind of doing the dirty work for them.
Exactly, exactly. So let's open it up for questions. How about that?
Hi, I'm Olivia DeAngelis. I was wondering what your favorite and your least favorite parts of being an attorney is.
Man, Olivia, that's going straight for the throat. I love that.
I told you, no softball.
They're really not. Clients, both answers. Okay. Because they really are.
The public?
Yeah, everybody's laughing. I'm being dead serious. I love some of my clients. I don't want to kill some of my clients. And the worst clients are the ones who don't listen. Because y'all, yeah, we're attorneys and we talk, but when we are telling you things, do pay attention. It's kind of like Mary telling you about, hey, how to organize, or Brian telling you how to be an entrepreneur. Listen to them, Olivia, because trust me, the clients we hate are the ones that you'll tell something, do A, and they do not A. Or don't go talking about this, or shh, and they don't do it, and then they come to us like fix, fix, fix. Some things may not be fixable. And so, no, that's a great question. It's clients, absolutely.
So my name is Charles Miles, and I have a question regarding trademarks.
Yes.
So you kind of talked about how if Ross has a company that's in the same sort of industry as CAMS,
Yep.
and they'll have issues with the trademark. So I was wondering, where's that line drawn for different industries?
That is a great question, Charles. Let's think of this. Would you want to have a McDonald's on an air conditioner? Probably could. McDonald's doesn't build air conditioners. Now, are they probably going to come after you saying, hey, we don't want you building air conditioners? But at the Trademark Office, granted, McDonald's is a famous mark. Maybe that's a bad one to use. But let's use a little less famous one. Let's go with, Academy Sports for making, something a little crazy, swimming. No, swimming pools almost is in there ambient. Antibiotics. So we want to have Academy Sports making antibiotics, Charles. There are ways that we may be able to get a trademark at the Trademark Office, but the real world implication of it is we're probably going to hear from Academy Sports or McDonald's if we try to do that. But your question's a great one because, if you use it for a disparate technology or a disparate service, you probably can get an identical mark to somebody else because guess what? Let's say that you were Triple Threat Fitness, Charles, but you make computers. Think Apple for computers too. Cam's gonna be like, that's my mark. But it's like, Cam, you don't make computers. Charles is making computers. So there are ways that you could get a similar mark in a very disparate good or service.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question. Others? We have the entire female golf team in here, and I know you.
Yeah, that was kind of sus. Y'all rolled in at one point, so we know there's a question here.
So
don't make us name names. We will. Ross has already been through this.
NCAA rules have changed, so just the fact that they're here kind of makes me wonder this. And some of them, I'm sure, could be making money off of their likeness now. So how do they go about doing that in the proper way?
Sure. Hire an agent. Foremost, you want to be able to navigate that. If you've had somebody approach you about it, remember I said read. Absolutely make certain. And don't just read for the sake of, hey, I've had the words pass through my mind. Make certain you understand what it is because, hey, you know what? If you're on the tour someday, you want to make certain that you did not lock yourselves into something during undergrad that might have a detrimental or long-term impact with your ability to advertise, to bring in new sponsors, etc. Read. If you've got somebody approaching you and making you an offer, go to an attorney. You don't have to go to me, but ask Mary or Dr. King or Brian for one and say, hey, I'd like somebody to read this and go over it to tell me plus minus, good, bad, because that's really where this is coming from. There are ethical obligations too, so having an agent to help you navigate that is a lot less on y'all. Yes, an agent wants a cut. Hey, it's how they make money and it's how they pay the mortgage. But I will tell you guys seriously though, don't just go willy-nilly signing stuff because if you do and then later on become bigger than Elvis, you may be locked into something contractually that could last for years and years and years that you never meant to do.
Yeah, that's great advice, especially now since it's so new. And
Absolutely.
Somebody
it's still cutting edge.
Described it as the Wild West because so many things are happening and so many people are getting offered things and people are just taking willy-nilly stuff that they really shouldn't be taking.
Bo Nix got $1 million from Milo Sweet Tea. He also alienated half the state of Alabama, but he got $1 million, y'all, for being a college quarterback. That's awesome. If you can make money off of your brand, do so. But remember these sort of general rules we talked about today. And then read. Understand what we're getting into.
One of the examples I learned about this weekend was this, I think she was a lacrosse player, a cross-country runner, and she has a beanie company. She started her own company, right? And her beanie, of course, she's able to now put her name, her trademark name. So should these golfers trademark their name?
Heck yeah. I mean, if y'all are that there, and like they're seeing a couple, the girls now are starting to focus. I'm seeing the mercenary in them come out, and that's awesome. Yes, protect yourselves. Absolutely do that. If you think, hey, I'm going to be the next big gig, take that protection, do it. Same as we told Ross and Cam for their businesses, it's your business.
Your name is your business.
It is, and your likeness is your business. And your ability to confine others from using that is your business.
Yeah. And she has quotes on there. So I think she's trademarked the quotes too that she puts on there.
Absolutely could have. Usually short phrases can't be copywritten, but they probably can be trademarked. So absolutely could have.
I'm Derek Sicklin, and I'm a computer science major actually. I want to ask about how code can be either trademarked or patented, and then what are the steps for prosecuting someone who violated that?
Those are good questions, Derek. Actually, computer code is strictly copywritten material. Now, you can get patents on the way that the code actually activates, actually presents itself. You could get a design patent on the user interface. So there's a lot of ways this code reaches into several different disparate areas of IP. But to prosecute it, heck, if you're going to file a user design interface on the appearance that code generates, we file a design patent. If we do have one, now computer and business models lately have taken some hits. We've got a case called Alice out there that's caused some uncertainty and has also sort of truncated that area. I don't do that. One of my best friends in the firm, Nate Quirk, does. I'm also lazy, so I don't want to try to learn computer science. Derek, if you call me, you're going to meet a great attorney named Nate who will know all these answers for you. But also for the copyright, when we took the picture of Dr. King, typing that code is the same thing, Derek. You do have copyright in it. And kind of like Mary said, pay attention. If you're doing it under somebody else's onus, make certain that it's the Derek product and this is what you want to make for it. Because, Mary, when she told us about being the reporter and they own all of her broadcasts, yeah, that's the game. But if Mary was a professional chef at the same time, they won't be able to get that. Her recipes, that trademark, that likeness, completely disparate from it. But yeah, there are a lot of ways to protect copyright. And for software, you can go patents, you can go copyright. Hey, you might not want to tell anybody and just keep it a trade secret, because if it's really hard to reverse engineer, there are a lot of different ways you can code. And one thing too, Derek, stay away from open source. I know it's easy, I know it's a quick fix, but you're going to go to a venture capitalist and they'll be like, all right, Derek, tell me about this. And you're going to say the word open source, and they're going to take off a flip-flop and hit you with it from across the room. And I know you're all laughing at it, but the guys, they hate this. They're going to make you go back and rewrite it as original code. But there's so many open source variations that will require you to either make it public or to go out and put your code out there with it. There are requirements for using that. And I think a lot of people, you talk the Wild West, a lot of app developers are just like, oh, it works, here it is. But there's somebody who's going to dig below the surface. They're going to want to know what Oz looks like. You need to make certain that Oz has his clothes on, because if he's got a bunch of open source in there, it's going to end up being bad. And you will look bad to the VC as well.
That's a really good piece of advice, because how many apps are being developed right now that are using open source that have to go back to the drawing board?
And they really will be sent back. It's almost like punishment. All right, go back and take out this open source and make it happen, Derek. And think about that too. You're trying to get a business off the ground. You've talked to these guys, they're getting ready to invest in you, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, open source, open source, open source, open source. Man, that's kind of like getting a, offsides penalty. Now you're back 10 yards thinking, damn, I have to redo all this just to get back to the spot I was.
Hi, my name's Maeve, and I was wondering, so if you've written something like a book and you haven't published it yet,
Yep.
you don't have an agent, and you want the advice of a friend or advice of someone for criticism,
Sure.
Is there a way to protect that, like a provisional copyright?
It's funny, use a non-disclosure agreement. And Maeve, what I would tell you too is if you're ready, if you're at the stage where you've got people looking at it, and Mary files her own copyrights. I encourage my clients to file their own copyrights. If you can navigate a list of questions, you can file that book as a copyright and have it for that edition. And guess what? If you go to this other person, say you go to Cam, and Cam cuts it up, he red inks this thing, and you make a lot of changes to it, file a copyright on the revised edition. So there are definitely ways that you can protect it. But if you want to go to somebody, and again, Ross has an invention, Cam has an invention, Derek has an invention. If you want to go to somebody and show them this, Maeve, make certain you trust them. Use your gut instinct. If those hackles in the back of your neck are rising, walk away. It's a bad thing. But get that in writing. You want that non-disclosure. You want to explain, hey, I'm showing you this. Here are the obligations. Here are both you signing to basically say, hey, we're in this together. But maybe if you've got the book to where you're thinking, hey, I'm at the point where I'm wanting critical feedback on it, I'll tell you short-circuit things. File your copyright registration. And then if they try to do something with it, it's a derivative work. It's infringement. You hold all the cards. This is a great question.
Definitely get people to look at it before you publish it.
Yeah.
Doug, thank you so much for joining
You're
me.
most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And as always, thank you so much for choosing the Class E podcast. Also, watch out for our brand new short segments, Everyday Entrepreneur. Learn in brief how everyday people become entrepreneurs as they share their stories with us. The Hill Institute is excited to announce another packed cohort of 25 aspiring entrepreneurs for the Greenville Starts program. This is an 8-week experience put on in partnership with the City of Greenville, South Carolina Department of Commerce, and SCRA that delivers the training, connections, and access to capital for startups of all types who are launching or growing their ventures in Greenville, South Carolina. If this program sounds like something you or a friend might be interested in or want to apply, simply Google Greenville Starts. Remember, the Class E podcast is made possible through a partnership between the Hill Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and the Communication Studies Department here at Furman University. This episode is produced by students Emma Kerr and Eliza Polich. I'm your host, Mary Sturgill. Until next time, dream big, everybody.